Okay, God as creator then. Now, God as creator mainly comes from Genesis 1 to 3. But we need to split the Genesis 1 to 3 up. Because in Genesis 1, we have the 6-day creation account. And in Genesis 2, we have the Adam and Eve. Although they don't actually get called Adam and Eve until Genesis 3. And in Genesis 3, which is linked to the Genesis 2, but specifically, this is where the fall occurs. Now, the 6-day creation, this is emphasising the idea of God's omnipotence. Both, you could say, are referring to his omnibenevolence as well. It's a good thing that he's created the world. But the main point here is the omnipotence. And also linked with this is a very important phrase, creatio ex nihilo. Now, this is really important to get through. In Genesis 1, it does not say creatio ex nihilo. It does not say that God has created the world out of nothing. However, later thinkers interpreted Genesis 1, and particularly when he said things like, let there be light, and the idea behind this is that he speaks into existence. Now this is important because if God simply moulded a pre-existing world, then he wouldn't be omnipotent. It would have question marks for it. Now, the other aspect of God as creator from here is about how he creates humans in his image. Now, although this comes from Genesis 1:27, it's more specific to the Adam and Eve story, because on here, in 2:7, we've got the breath of life. Because the idea is that we're in the image of God, but also we are like God. And the other thing that the Genesis 2 story is very important is because in it we get the creation of free will. God the creator. So, he creates everything. 6-day creation account. He's omnipotent, creatio ex nihilo. But he creates humans special because we've got free will, but also, from the Genesis accounts, stewardship or dominion. We are in charge. God's created everything, but he's created one species like him, higher than him. The idea of the breath of life then is also the soul. So the Judeo-Christian concept is that humans have a soul rather than the animals. And he creates free will, which is really important because he wants you to choose to follow him. Now, other passages that you get, because with the concept of God as creator, you could get a question which says, explain how the Bible shows this. And obviously we're mainly talking about Genesis 1 to 3, but there's some other passages as well. And these other passages refer to God as the potter, and God as the refiner, the idea that he's still at work. Now the significance of these two passages, God as a potter, is the idea that it's a loving, personal creator. The refiner is that God is someone who intervenes, work in progress. And the important idea here is something called sustainer. God is not just the creator, he's the sustainer. He's carrying on. So, similar to the prime mover in this way, God hasn't gone, I'm going to create this, and he's gone off. He is still actively involved in his creation.
Is that what salvation means?
Salvation? Salvation means that we're going to be saved, so I suppose it's part of his active involvement, but it's more the fact that if God wasn't working now, the world wouldn't be here. It would cease to exist, or it would collapse in on itself. But obviously, the salvation is part of that act. Okay, questions about God the Creator?
Is that all? Is that it?
It's not long. Do we not need to say anything more about thought?
Yes, there's a quote.
Obviously, I'm trying to do it a bit briefly. The thing with the fall is more significant with the problem of evil. So we will touch upon that in the problem of evil.
You know, creatio ex nihilo?
In fact, the only thing we have missed off there is that God creates a perfect world. That's really important. And this says that because he says it was good. And so the fall explains why the world is apparently not perfect. So he does create a perfect world at first. Again, this is emphasising his omnipotence, also maybe his omnibenevolence as well. Okay, any questions?
The creatio ex nihilo one, I've read someone else should write an essay for it.
Well, an essay that you got, and
Well,
you've seen that you've had it recently.
Yeah, add that on.
I'd be surprised if you got that question up again, because they can't repeat the questions anyway. But if it did, effectively, you'd be writing about.
The whole of Gardens Creek.
Yeah, but you'd have to apply it to the create out of nothing. So, for instance, Creatio ex nihilo implies the omnipotence. So some of these other bits that you'd be talking about, you'd be emphasising how that talks about the omnipotence of it, which is linked to how we create out of nothing. But Creatio ex nihilo is still part of creation, created humans, free will, but it's still out of nothing. Okay?
So he's still involved in creation and world.
Yeah, and this part here, that's really important. He's the sustainer, he's still actively involved. So that's implied with the passage about the refiner and there's a purifier one as well. The idea that we're still a work in progress. And that's God the Creator.